Hi, this is Katie and welcome to Chapter 8 on arrays. Now what we're going to do is focus on a few concepts. So we're going to look at this Code With Me student workbook that's in the Code With Me file, or the assignment, excuse me, and kind of use this as our document to work through a program. So you can go ahead and open JGrasp while I'm talking real quick. Chapter 8 covers a concept. This is our last concept we're going to cover in this session. And if you go on with 117, you'll pick up with Chapter 9 after you do an overview of classes and objects and arrays. So this is the next spot for you to pick up when you go on with your studies in programming, if you continue on. Arrays are covered in all of our intro languages as well, and they're done a little differently in each language, but the concept is the same. So basically an array is just a list of elements of the same data type. So instead of storing 10 grades, for example, if you had 10 quizzes, instead of storing double quiz 1 grade and then double quiz 2 grade, what you would do is create an array of grades that would be size 10, so it would be only one variable that stores everything. So what we're going to focus on are how to declare arrays, how to initialize an array, how to use array or variable subscripts with an array, and we'll look at using parallel arrays, and this will be also used in your final project as well. So go ahead and read through this document because it gives you a lot of pointers of where to look for in the book on how to set things up. So we're going to create a new Java project. I need to increase my font size. It looks like it's gone down a little bit again. And we can start by saving this, and I'm going to call it, I haven't coded this on my computer yet, so we'll do Code With Me 11, or yeah, Code With Me 11 assignment. And that is on Learning Module 11, but it is Chapter 8 arrays. So that's what we're going to call our class. Code With Me 11 assignment. Now with this program, with this learning module, we are only going to have this as the only assignment. So there won't be an additional assignment. There will be phase 1 of the final project that you'll have to do in this learning module, but there won't be an additional assignment. So let's just document. Your name, and now we are going to do input, so we're going to start with our basics. Now you can copy and paste from a different program or just use what you already have. So we need to name our class. And we have main. In this chapter, it also talks about passing arrays to methods and how to use an array of objects, and those are very important. If you go on to the next class, it's important for you to know how to do that. So reference those. It's toward the end of the chapter, like 3/4 of the way through the chapter. It's called declaring and using an array of objects, and then passing arrays to and from methods. And again, because we're going to do everything in main, we're not going to focus on that part of this chapter to kind of simplify things. We may do this for our final project, but I will help you set up your program. Okay, we are going to have our scanner input equals new scanner. And we want to write a loop so our program runs again. So make sure you put a space in here, or you can put no value for now. This is our loop control variable for our big do while loop. So we have do, and then we will put all our code in here. And then remember our ending code for our big do while. You can copy and paste from one of your other programs. I'll just type it real quick because it can type kind of fast, but if you're not, you can just go over to your last program and copy it, and it'll be the same. Maybe if I quit making mistakes. Nope, I'm missing 2 parentheses there. There we go. Okay. Generate my CSD. Make sure I can compile. And I thought I had an error. Oh, I forgot it in N here. So system.out.print. This is probably why we should copy and paste, but forgot an N there, and I think that was it. Oh, compile again. There we go. Okay, so now I can loop around my program. So this is where we want to start. Okay, now there are some good examples. I'm assuming you've read the chapter already, but there are some good examples in the back of the book, the exercises on how to work with arrays, and then also inside of the chapter, the you do it's and looking at the sample code is very helpful as well. In my face-to-face class, we came up with a way to store, well, we wrote a kind of an inventory program, and it can be of anything, but we wrote it with a box of crayons. So what we're going to do is we're going to create and store some parallel arrays. Parallel arrays are not two-dimensional. They're one-dimensional arrays, so it's just one line of numbers blocked together, but they're related in some way, and it's like an index 0. That color would match the index 0 for that crayon number, and then the index 0 for another array would match the price of that color. So there's all, they're parallel, but they're not, they're parallel in concept where each one matches up. So let me just show you kind of what I'm talking about, and I'll use Excel because this kind of works out. So if I created an array and I wanted to call it crayon color, I would give it a data type of string, so it would be a string because that's what crayon color is. And this isn't how you declare it, but say I wanted to store 10 colors, and then I would create int crayon number, and again I'd make this a size 10 so that we could store 10 crayon numbers. And let me move this down. Whoop. And then we're going to create another one, double, and whoops, crayon cost, like the cost to manufacture that particular color, because some might be more different. But we'll just do this for 10 elements of the array. So we create the concept like this, and then I didn't want to do that. I wanted to make more space. And then what that does is it gives us, instead of 10 different variables, it gives us one variable called crayon color, and we could put, since it's a size 10, it would go 0 to 9, which is 10 places. Okay, so then 4, 5, 6, 7, see, I know how to count. Whoops, I don't know how to count. 7, 8, and 9. Now those are the 10 blocks of the array, and those are called index, and it's an index or a subscript. Can be referenced as either one. And arrays always start at 0. So one of the things it cautions about is overflowing the size of the array, or starting the array at 1, filling the array at 1, and then you overpopulate it. You try to put a value in a place that's out of bounds. So if you start at 1 and you want to fill 10 places, you're going to try to put a value here, which isn't reserved in memory. So that would be overflowing the size of the array, or going out of bounds of the array. And that's a huge problem because the memory isn't reserved. Now here you could have any values. These are called elements of the array, and they're whatever you want to store. So if we want to store green, red, black, white, brown, and a color called, we learned, there's fuzzy, wuzzy, brown, and fuchsia, and orange, pink, and purple. So you wanted to store 10 colors of the array. They could be anything. There's 120 crayon colors, by the way. So you could make this, if you want to store a database of this and then a number that matches up, we could do that. With the crayon number, what we did is, since I mentioned there's 120 crayons, we're going to store the corresponding crayon number. So again, we have an array of size 10, so it goes from 0 to 9. And then green, let's say green is in, the crayon number for green is 10. This would be in a database. The crayon number for red is 6. Black is 110. White is 100. Brown is 90. Fuzzy wuzzy brown is 95. Fuchsia 80, and we'll make pink an 85. I mean, these are all just random values. Purple, I'm trying to get like in a range. You can, well, I'm kind of making this up, but you can pick number values. So on the side of crayons, if you look at the side of crayons, which I do a lot, you want to there's a color and then there's a number. So your program wants to store the number that's along with that color. And in this case, it can be any, because it's an integer, it can be any int between between 1 and 120, and we'll error code for that. Now, we're not going to error code for the string, but because the array of the data type of this is a string, it can only store strings in this value, in these elements. This one can only store integers right here in the elements of the array, and it can only store them because we declared it as size int. Now, another array, because I want to show you how to work with all three, that we could do is another one of size 10 that stores a double, and this could be the cost that it takes to develop this crayon, for example, or to add this crayon into like a custom color box. So let's say that the crayon cost can be anywhere from a penny to 30 cents. And that would represent a double. So if I wanted to, in my program, if the green crayon, which is number 10, if that's a basic crayon, well, yellow and blue make green, so let's say that's a primary, or not a primary, so we'll make that crayon like 2 cents. You know, it's still a pretty cheap crayon to create. Red would be 1, you know, black maybe, I don't know, 5. So we have different, white maybe 5 cents, brown 2, fuzzy wuzzy fuchsia, that's an expensive crayon, or fuzzy wuzzy brown. Fuchsia is another expensive crayon. So you're just assigning random values to it. But they could be doubles because the array is of data type double. So that's the concept of arrays. Now these are called parallel arrays, again, because they're separate, but they have a link to them. Whereas whatever's in index 0 here matches or is related to whatever's in index here, which is related to whatever's in index here. But they're all separate. So we're going to go to our program and we're going to code these arrays. Now what we're going to do with our custom crayon box is we're going to take in all of this data and then figure out the wholesale cost of the box of crayons. So you could maybe use this program to, you know, as a web program where somebody wants to go and order a custom box of crayons with only certain colors in there. You could have them enter their 10 colors, enter the 10 numbers, enter the prices, or, you know, it'd pull it from a database, but we're not going to work that way yet. And then it would add them up, because I want to show you how to do accumulation. So here's how we do our first one. We are going to make an array. This is the color of the crayon. We use the data type string. We use 2 brackets to define it. We give it a data name, a variable name, crayon color, and this is I'm using camel casing. We use the same rules for naming variables as anything else. So no spaces, can't start with a number, and so on. And then we say equals new string, so this would be the data type again, and new is a keyword, and then how many elements. So we want it element 10. Now at the beginning of this document here, it talks about right here under declaring arrays, how to do this, how to reference it on page 398, or how to look it up in the, or where it is in the book. And then it talks about how you can do it in 2 different statements. I'll do it in one because it's just as easy. So under this teaching tip, it talks about doing it in one. So just as easy. So that's how you declare an array. Now let's go back and declare our other ones. Okay, so next we're going to declare our int array. So int and then brackets, which again define it as an array. and then we'll call this crayon number, and equals new int, and this is the size, 10. And this is called a static array. It could be any size we want, but remember, every block that it stores creates a place in memory. And so if you made a new array of size 10,000, that might be too big because it takes 10,000 blocks or bytes within the system, or depending on the data type. And there's an alternative to that. It's called a static array, but we're going to just focus on dynamic arrays in this section. So we'll create arrays of specific sizes. So we have 3 arrays we're going to work with. The last one I just typed was our double crayon cost and new double of size 10, and those are hard brackets. And then because I want to create the wholesale cost, so the cost of creating this box of crayons, I'm going to create a double, and what that cost will be is the price of all of these added up. So that's called accumulation, and I want to show you how to do that because you'll have to do that for our final project. So anytime we're working with arrays, we want to step through them. So we want to go from this element to this element to this one to this, and so on. And we want to fill it in. So we're basically going to use the subscript, and we're going to use the subscript of I as our counter. So we initialize it to 0, and then we walk through that of the array and fill each value. So when you know the size of an array, we always use a for loop. And if I know I want to fill in 10 places, I would say int I equals 0, because I want to start at the 0 index, and then as long as I is less than 10, because it would go 0 to 9, which is 10. If you said less than or equal to 10, it would go 1 too many places, and then that would be a problem. And of course, I++ adds 1 to I, so we can increment it by 1. So it would go 0 to 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then end. No semicolon at the end of a for loop, and then we open with a curly brace, and then close with a curly brace. So we just want to ask our question so we can fill our array. We want to say, the first one we want to fill is the color. And we ask a simple question like we did before, enter the crayon color, and then we say crayon color, and before we said equals input dot next int or next line or next double, but before we do that we want to say which element of the array or which index of the array. So anytime you work with arrays, you also have to have the brackets. So you say crayon color bracket I, so on the first iteration it would be 0, and what you're filling in is this value here. And then on the second iteration, I would be 1, and you're filling in this value. And then I would be 2, and you're filling in this value, and so on. So we're going to say crayon color in the I spot equals input.next. And then because we're working with a loop, we want to do input.nextLine, to skip or to fix that skipping issue. And that's only because we're going to take in an int after this, so we want to not have it skip. Now we're going to come back and put .nextRead. Well, nope. We're going to come back and do our error code for the numbers and the cost in a little bit. But before we end the for loop, that will go through and take in the color crayon. Now I want to take in the color number. So I'm going to reuse the same loop. So let me just take in the 10 colors, and then I want to, or well, I'll take in one, but then I want to take in, let me do a /n here. I don't need to. Enter the number associated with color, and I'm going to just add the color, or the crayon name, the crayon color, and I would say in the I spot, so whatever I just entered is going to display here, plus quote, and then my semicolon. And then I want to say crayon number equals input, we need to do the array. So crayon number in the I spot equals input dot next int, because this is an integer. Now we're going to go on to enter in the cost, and again we're still within the for loop. So we'll ask that question. Enter the cost of the crayon color in the I spot. Enter the cost of the red or whatever color crayon. And that goes into crayon cost. I think that's what we called it. And into, again, the I spot, because we're still in that one array, and we'll do input dot next, and this is a double. Oh, I'm missing my parentheses there and here. I don't want to have any syntax issues. Okay, and then we end our program. So let's save and compile. And see if we have any errors, first of all, and then see what happens. Oh, I do. Probably something you noticed. I always forget my closing curly or parenthesis. Missing my closing parenthesis there, and I probably did it down here, and I did it down there too. Okay, so I had a couple errors. Just go to the top, go down. We declare our variables, we do our input. So this is the whole for loop. Make sure you have your brackets here, and then what I was missing was my closing parenthesis. And then we had the end, which we already compiled and we know runs. So I'm going to run this, and I'm going to go over, and I'm going to start filling the elements of my array. Now here, so enter the crayon color. We could enter in red. Enter the number. Red was, say 10, and the cost of red is 2 cents. And then we go on to the next one, and that was 11, and that was 3 cents, and so on. And now this will go through 10 times because we have 10 color crayons. And then I'm just throwing in numbers and letters. But once we get to the end of this loop, or end of 10 inputs, it ends. Do you want to run again? Yes, and it should start over and fill it in. So that's how you fill the values of the array. You use loops typically. Now you can also add up the values of the array. So we're going to go outside of this for loop And remember how I said we're going to take each of the costs and do something called accumulate. So we're going to add that up. So we're going to create another for loop that walks through the elements of the crayon cost and accumulates it. So again, we have 10 crayons, so we want to do 10 times an I++, and open and close, and we want to accumulate. And that would be your total. So we're calling our total here wholesale cost equals the wholesale cost plus whatever's in that first spot of the array. Crayon cost in the I spot, which is the 0 index. And then it loops around 10 times and continuously adds that up. So when we break out of this loop, we have a cost of the custom box of crayons. So we could print that out. System.out.println. That's how you accumulate. Oh, I should probably use printf. Whoops, I don't have to delete all that. I'll just do printf. Printf, since we're dealing with a decimal. I'm going to put a $sign and then percent dot 2f and then that and then a comma and then wholesale cost. Close my parenthesis and there we go. Okay, well let's run this and see if we add up the wholesale cost. Now let's say that we could use the data right from here, but that'll be a lot of going back and forth, so I'm just going to make up things. And again, because we have 10 inputs, wholesale, cannot find wholesale cost. Why? Cannot find my symbol. What do I have wrong? I'm missing something. Variable wholesale cost. One error. Oh, I used a capital S. Ah, you probably noticed that long before me. I'm not following my syntax rule. Lowercase s. There we go. So we're going to run through the project to show how it accumulates. So I'll just put in blue. Make sure yours is working. 10 and 1 cent. And green. And that's 11 and that's 2 cents. Red. Forgot my colors. No. let's say it's 15 cents. Black. And white. Fuchsia. There we go. The cost of your custom box of crayons, if I spelled it right, is 98 cents. And that was just taking all of what we put into the crayon cost and accumulating. And you could go back through my input and add it all up. I'm not going to because I know it's right, and it adds it up to there. Now when you want, one thing you want to be sure of when you hit yes to run it again, that it does accumulate, or it does reset your total variable, and in this case the total variable is wholesale cost. So how you ensure that happens is you put that right inside of here, right inside of your big do while, because when it goes back it'll clear everything out and reset it to 0, so it doesn't accumulate the second person who buys a box of crayons. It's just one person. Now we'll go through a run one more time, but let's add two things. Now one of the things you're going to do in your final project is you're going to error code for input into numeric values. So I had mentioned over here that there are 120 crayons. So we want to, here where it says enter the number associated with the color, whatever, this is going to be our prime read. Now this we're not going to error check because it's a string. But we're going to error code, or also called range check, and that's just explained in the book too. And we did it with our last chapter. So we're going to error check or range check that input, and we're also going to error check or range check this input. So any numeric input you need to range check. Now how you do that is we're going to leave this alone, but I'm going to copy it. And this becomes our prime read. So it's our first read. And what we want to do is we want to write a while loop that says while this crayon number in the I spot is less than 1, or the crayon number in the I spot is greater than 120, then we want to open and close end the while loop, and we want to print out an error message. Must be between 1 and 120, because there's only 120 crayons. I thought there'd be a lot more crayons in the world, but there's not. And then what we want to do is paste what we copied. I'm going to paste the input again. So it's the basic error code that we did before, where we have our prime read. We ask our question if it's outside of this range, meaning less than 1 or greater than 120. The only thing that's different is we're working with arrays, so we have to reference the index. Then we want to print an error message. Now what you'll see now when you compile and run the program is it will check for that. So when we enter in blue and we say blue is 0, no, it's not 0, so we'll make you enter it again and say we put in its crayon 150. No, that's not right. 190. No. Let's say blue is crayon 48. Good. Then it goes on to the next one. Well, the cost of the blue crayon, and then green, and then again the error code is checked with the next one because we have a prime read. So it'll say what is the cost or the number associated with green, and again if I put in something that's out of that range, it's going to continuously repeat my error and let me do an input until I get it correct. So that is how you can error code your input. The last one that we want to error code is done the same way. Now here, remember the cost of our crayon. Whoops. Let's do it the same way. This is still within that big for loop, but the cost of the crayon is only between a penny and 30 cents. So no crayon is more than 30 cents. So we're going to copy this entire input, which is our prime read, and then we'll do our while statement. So while the crayon cost is in the I spot is less than a penny. So a penny is okay, but less than that is not. Or the crayon cost in the I spot is greater than 30 cents. Then we want to open, close, and print our error. Between 1 and 30 cents. And that's what we've checked for. And then we'll paste our prime read, and it'll ask the question again. So I don't want to go through all the input, but the last thing I want to show you is a table. So at the end, we have we calculate the wholesale cost, and then we printed the cost of the box of crayons. But let's say, not print ln. Let's just say that we want to print all of the data that we took in. So I'm going to space out my input a little bit. Just put some things there and some new lines. And then I want to do my display. And in here I want to system.out.print. I just want to do a table of some sort. So I'll say your custom crayon box. So I want to print first I'm going to use the /t for tab. I want to first print the number. Then I want to go over a little bit, and I want to tab, and then I want to print the color. So these are just my, I'm sorry, the number and then the color, and these are just my headers for my data. So I don't need to reference. I can spell color, crayon. I don't need to reference them because it's just part of my header. Let's put an N and an N and oops, and that, there we go. And now I want to display everything that's in my arrays. So I'm going to use a quick for loop. I can reuse I, if you've noticed. I can reuse I over and over again because it's declared within the confines of that for loop, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't see it as different variables. And I want to just display those values of the variables. So system.out.println, I'm going to do a tab to match up with my tab, and then plus, and then the crayon, whoops, and my quote, then a plus, and then the crayon number in the I spot, plus, let's do 2 tabs to see how that tabs over, plus the crayon color in the I spot, and that, and there we go. So that is all that would be in the for loop. Now this line will run 10 times, and each thing it will print out the number and then the color and then the number and the color and the number and a color in kind of a data format, a table format. So let's look through the steps of this program and run it one last time so you can have some sample output. Again, there's no assignment for arrays, but this, read the chapter, do the quiz if you haven't already, and then there will be one more thing in this learning module, which will be phase 1 of the final project, and I'll post that very soon. If not, you'll see it already when I post this after it renders. But let's see what we have going on. So we have our, actually let me get rid of my lines. I can see a little bit. I just wanted to remove my lines. Okay, so we have our basic things. We do our normal steps. Just want to show you what we got going on here. Step 1, declare our variables, which we've done always. Step 2, we've done our input. Now we're doing our input, and the start of the for loop and the end of the for loop is way down here, so don't get lost in your curly braces. But not only are we doing our input, we're error checking at the same time. So we have our input for a crayon color, and we're using the next and next line for the skipping issue. We have our input for our next int, and then we're error checking next int. And these two lines of code are exactly the same as the two lines of code that are in our error checking loop. So while it's less than 1 or greater than 120, take it in again. And then we have our prime read for the cost, and we error check the cost. So that's all our input, except that with our input, we're also doing error check, which you'll have to do. So this is step 3, and in step 3, we're doing our calculations. And here we're doing this by accumulating, and we're accumulating the wholesale cost of the crayons. So we're adding up the cost. We're adding up each element of the crayon cost array. And then our last step is our output, which we are doing in a nice table format where we will display the crayon number and the color, and then we actually could also display the cost if we want of each crayon, but we'll just display the whole cost at the end. So what it would be after the, you know, not an individual box or an individual crayon. All right. So that's it. You can run yours. I'm going to compile, run one more time, and I'm going to run through mine and put my sample output, and you can follow along to make sure you have the same data as well. That's the end of my program. Okay, red, and that is 10, and that one's a penny. And then blue, I'm just making these up, of course, 11 and 3 cents. Green, and 14 and 3 cents. Purple, if I can spell it. Let's say, remember, let's just double check with our error code. Oh, good, it caught it. That's not right. So maybe that one was 19, and that cost was 10 cents. And then fuchsia, 104, and that crayon was 29. Fuzzy wuzzy brown, 116, and that crayon costs 30 cents because it's a special crayon. White, 29 and 10 cents. Black is 30, and that's 9 cents. And yellow, it's hard to think of 10 colors. I'm not looking at my crayon box. 50 and 10 cents. Oh Lord, another color. Peach. 109, and that one's 18 cents. here we go. So you could do some, it goes through my input, and then I have my custom crayons. Here's my input. Here's my color. You notice the fuzzy, when I put fuzzy wuzzy brown, there's a space issue. I have to find the fix for that, but don't worry about it right now. But it matched up and pulled each of those values, and then each of the values for the color, so the number and the color, and you would have to mess with the tabulations. But here, the cost of all of this, $1.23. Do you want to run it again? No, but if you did, it would clear everything out and let you run again. So copy this output, or copy the sample output, input and output, and well, just the output, and then paste it to the bottom of your program. And turn this in the learning module for sample output. Turn this in for the Code With Me 11 on Chapter 8. And again, there won't be a special assignment, but what we're moving on to next, after you do this and do the quiz for Chapter 8, we are moving on to our final project. So thanks for listening to the last Code With Me video. I hope you learned a lot on arrays. I hope I didn't put you to sleep, and we ended within an hour. That's a first. Thanks. Have a great night.